everyone, welcome back to Elder Gal Spirit. I am still filming this when I'm in Albania, but there was something really weighing on my mind lately, and I wanted to talk about it on the spiritual channel because it's a spiritual topic. And the topic is, why do bad things happen to good people? Now, I know that if you're a sensitive person, a caring person, a spiritual person, this thought has weighed on your mind as well. It's weighed on my mind all of my life. I know about karma, and I know about, just fate and whatever you want to call things, that things are supposed to happen the way they're supposed to happen. It's never made sense to me because you can take a wonderful person that has to literally walk through the fires of hell in their lifetime, and then you think about somebody who's done the most despicable things, people that have been guilty of mass murder, such as, during the 1940s. And you think about someone like that, and you think, yeah, they met their untimely end, but they succeeded. They had this charmed life before then. And you think to yourself, why is that allowed to happen? Some people who are spiritual don't believe in God, and some people who are spiritual do believe in God. I do believe in God. I don't believe in God necessarily in what you would consider the traditional Christian concept of God, but I believe in God a little more closely aligned with that than I would, let's say, the Hindu religion, where there's a belief in multiple, deities. So for me, I do believe there's a God, but then there's always a question in my mind that if there's a God, why does God allow this kind of evil to flourish at times among humans? And why do such horrible things happen to some of the best people? There's an old saying that, only the good die young. I'm sure you've heard that. And that, another saying I always think about is, they'll say about someone, oh, they're too mean to die. I've heard that one a lot. And you know what? From my experience in life, I have seen that play out. Usually I have found that the people that lived the longest were not necessarily the best people. And I always wondered about that. Unless if you think about our time here in this reality as some sort of schoolroom, proving ground, obstacle course, whatever kind of metaphor you want to put on that, maybe that's the reason. Maybe going through this life and not having a lot of problems isn't really a good thing. Because as I know I've shared on my other channel, and I also do believe this, is that you don't learn anything in life if everything is always going well. If your life is charmed, you are not going to learn things as well as somebody who goes through, obstacles and turmoil and, disasters. It's just a fact. People go through the most change and in overcoming things, grow as people, become stronger as people. And so maybe that's the reason for it. Maybe it's not a punishment that you go through life and you have obstacles and things like that. Maybe that's just part of the process of doing this. Well, the reason I'm thinking and talking about this today, and this literally just came up for me. I'd been thinking about it, but I didn't know how I was going to talk about it today. But I thought, you know what? It's a good time. Just sit down and do it. Speak to the camera, speak, as I normally do from my heart. And the reason I was really thinking about it, as I was thinking about the meditation teacher I had 11 years ago. I'm not going to share his real name, but I have to say he was one of the most gifted, spiritual, healing people I've ever met. I was part of his meditation group for a year and a half. I knew him for 2 or 3 years before I left the area, really, and I went out to live in my van and stuff like that. But I stayed in touch with him. And then I'll tell you what happened to him in a moment here. There's a whole point to me bringing this up. But I just wanted to share his background. You know, he had a vision for how he wanted to have found this kind of spiritual community of people, not a cult, but a spiritual community of people who were into meditation and who were into, you know, supporting one another in that kind of spiritual environment, kind of caring, healing environment. And he dreamed big. You know, he really had these, and he was very gifted as a healer. So it wasn't just in meditation. He would do these, like, kind of, I guess, similar to Reiki sessions. And I had probably 2 or 3 sessions with him with this, and they were always extremely powerful. Completely you know, kind of amplified my own energy, but also healed certain things in the short run. And just, you know, it was an amazing gift he had. It really was. And I never understood it because I don't have that kind of gift. I've never really, you know, I'm very sensitive and intuitive, but I'm not somebody that I would say is can do like physical healing and things like that. Well, the reason I was thinking about this is that I think he was a good person. He is a good person. He's still alive, but he is a good person. Now, is he the best person, like a saint or something? No. He's a human being like the rest of us that, you know, he had his foibles and, you know, he had issues and everything like that, like I do, like most people do. But he was a good person. He did not try to do harm to other people. And that's what I mean by when I say a good person. Well, around the time when I moved into the senior community I was living in Northern California, which would have been in the summer, this time of year in 2018. So that would have been 7 years ago. In February, just before that, so February of 2018, he had a massive stroke, this guy. Now, he was, I think he was about 3 years older than I was, maybe 3-4 years older than I was. And, but he had a massive stroke. And he survived it. But it really paralyzed one side of his body, and he lost his ability to really speak. And even though he went through therapy and physical therapy and, you know, the type of stroke therapy they do with people, he never really improved that much. And so his daughter, he had one daughter, his daughter ended up, and it was, you know, amazing for her. She ended up really taking care of him and taking him back home and really taking care of him. Now, I was not around. I was not, you lived down in Arizona, but, and he couldn't really speak to anyone on the phone or, you know, send a text, or he couldn't do any of that anymore. So a lot of us did send our well wishes to him and things like that, which I'm sure he would, you know, had read to him. But I only found out about it, I think about 2 months after he had the stroke even. I didn't hear immediately. The reason I bring it up is it's always bothered me on a spiritual level. Why did something so horrific happen to this man who was doing such incredible good on a spiritual level with people? Like, you know, being a meditation teacher, being a healer, being, you know, a visionary about, you know, a better world. Like, it just seems so cruel that he has to spend the rest of his life now. And he's been alive now 7 years, more than 7 years since that stroke. And I thought, why did that have to happen to him? And I never get a good answer inside myself. I don't, because it seems to me so horrifically unfair. Now, if he could speak and he could talk about it, he might say that it kind of, you know, he was really good at meditating, and he always loved to be like, you know, in the moment, mindful, you know, in that kind of state of consciousness. And this kind of allows him to almost always be in that state of consciousness. I mean, he is awake and he is, you know, he's able to eat and stuff like that. But I mean, he really has to spend most of his days in this kind of meditative state. And so Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions and thoughts on this, not on this particular incident, but just if you know of anything similar and that you've known someone in your own life that something like this has happened and you wonder, why does this person have to suffer like this when they were trying to do such good in the world? And that's really what the bottom line is for me on this. He was trying to do such good in the world. He had so much to offer. And why did he have to spend the rest of his life really closed off in many ways from this world, yet not being able to escape it? And so that's one of those spiritual things that bothers me, and I don't have a good answer for it. So if you have an answer for that, about why this kind of thing happens and like what is the purpose of it, because my attitude is, why should he have to endure years of suffering? And I realize not all of it is suffering, and he probably has a way better attitude and perspective on this than I'm discussing right now. I don't know what his perspective is because I don't have any way to communicate with him. So maybe he has a wonderful perspective about it. Maybe he's made peace with it. In fact, knowing who he is, I would say he probably has made peace with it. But it still seems like a little bit of torture to me. Like, if you're going to have something like that happen and then you die and you move on and you go to the next, dimension of existence, that's one thing. That I can understand. That I could have understood. If he had had a stroke and had not survived and just that was his time to move on, I can totally get that. I just don't understand this particular thing. I've known wonderful people in this world who've had to go through incredible struggles and incredible discomfort and even pain, much more than people who were horrible people. And I just don't understand it. So if you guys have a perspective on it, please share. And maybe in reading your comments, it will help me understand it a bit better, because I really don't have an answer for this one. I really don't. Like I said, I have seen some really horrible people live long lives without a lot of problems, and I've just never understood it. Never understood it. So on that note, take care of yourselves. Be well. Be kind. See you next time.